How's it going today, guys? Back here with another video from beautiful and hot Phoenix, Arizona. You're probably wondering why I'm wearing a sweatshirt. Gotta support the brands, but I am gonna try to make this short and sweet because it is super freaking hot out here. So today's video is about how I earned quarterly raises at work pretty much from the age of 17 through 22. I'd like to start by saying that no, not every job that you have is going to allow for this. There are going to be some positions that no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you achieve, they're probably just not going to succumb to not just a young kid, but really anyone asking for a raise every quarter. However, at that point in my career, I was truly taking on so much in such a short window. I always made sure that I basically laid out a guideline that said I'm going to be asking for quarterly reviews, because that's how hard I'm going to work. That's how much I'm going to achieve within that window. And I don't want to wait 12 months to basically go through this laundry list. I want to hit everything when it's fresh, when it's current, and I'm going to keep growing. Believe it or not, this was actually 2 or 3 different jobs that I had this at. So it wasn't like it was just one specific role that allowed for me to have this type of accelerated growth. But I just made that abundantly clear whenever I started that this was going to be the case. This is what I wanted to do. And I kind of put the ball in their court to say no. And all of them basically told me, hey, if you're able to, hit the things that you say that you want to, and if you're improving enough and that quick enough of a timeline, we're going to let it happen. So how do you do that? First and foremost, you've got to be ready to work. Before you ever ask for anything, before you ever step into a room and say, I'm going to have quarterly reviews or even 6-month reviews, or actually even maybe annual reviews, but that's usually standard. You have to really be willing to put in work. I'm going to hit you with something that isn't very popular in speaking to other 9-to-5 type employees. I understand the inflation and the 2 to 3% every year, but I actually don't believe that you're dictated a raise every single year just because you've been employed somewhere. May not be the most popular of opinions. I know with fellow employees, it's kind of gotten me a little bit of flack. But if you're doing a fairly mediocre or even an average job that you've been hired to do, why should you get paid more just because you have tenure? If I can hire somebody who is going to do the exact same quality work for cheaper, I'm going to hire them over you if you're just a subpar employee. So I don't believe in raises whatsoever if you're not actively performing, getting better, and doing more. Otherwise, I'm going to continue paying you for the job that I hired you to do in the first place. So having said that, before I ever thought about having a quarterly review, and actually I stumbled into it because of the way that I was improving, was on this. I basically told myself, I'm going to every single day continue to work towards new achievements and set new heights. So I looked at the accounting hierarchy when I started my first accounting internship and basically said, okay, this is how you master being an accounting intern. After an accounting intern, you become an accounts payable clerk and an accounts receivable clerk. So basically an entry-level accountant. Then you move into maybe being an accountant, and each career is different. But basically I figured out, okay, this is the accounting hierarchy. Here are the tasks that I need to do to get to each of these positions. And I am just going to accelerate the hell out of my growth to hit each of these things. I never cared that it said, you got to be an accounting intern for a year, and then you got to work accounts receivable and accounts payable for a year, then an accountant for 3 years to be a senior accountant, or 4 or 5 years to be a senior accountant. And then you got to work 10 years, 15 years to maybe have a chance at being a CFO. I said, fuck that. I'm going to go out and I'm going to streamline the hell out of this, and I'm going to become an accountant, accounts payable and accounts receivable within 3 months. How am I going to become an accountant within 6 or 9 months? And I did a video a few days ago, looked at the job responsibilities. I didn't care if I wasn't learning it in school. I didn't care if I didn't have experience in it prior. I was going to learn these and teach these tasks to myself so that I can bring it to whatever I was working at the time and basically showcase it. And I moved as quickly and as efficiently as possible because I always wanted to get to that peak point where then I could see, okay, I've maxed this out, it's time for this role. I've maxed this out, it's time for this role. And because of the speed in which I was basically running through these tasks and responsibilities, I was then in a position where I started noticing like, hey, well, I've started to do this. So I'd ask for a raise and I'm like, okay, start doing this, ask for a raise. Well, it really hasn't been a long time. You just had one a few months back. But then I'd be like, yeah, but I now do this, this, and this, and this. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And before I knew it, I was having quarterly raises, and that became almost a prerequisite for me to work anywhere. So all in all, if you're willing to work and you're willing to hustle, and if you're willing to actually achieve whatever it is at these steps throughout the hierarchy of whatever your career is, I think you kind of write the book on what you can ask for. There's nothing that says you can't have a raise every month. Maybe a quarter's too long for how much you may go out and do. But you should never wait for somebody to give you another review. You should dictate how well you're performing and then dictate the reviews around that. And if a job says no, and trust me, I said throughout that window, I had 2 to 3 jobs of when I was having these quarterly reviews. The first job, some jobs you're going to hit a ceiling, but if you're hustling and working as hard as you can and as efficiently and as streamlined as you can, you're going to find so much sooner where that job caps out. So my first job, I basically started as a very, entry level accounting intern. I was doing a lot of paperwork and stuff like that, but I started doing, a little bit of accounts payable. I started doing a little bit entry level bookkeeping. I started doing some accounts receivable. And then that job got to a point where they're like, listen, we have an account, we have a CFO, we've already got this staff figured out. That's actually the role, this is as far as this role is going to take you. And I said, all right, well, smell ya, it's time for the next opportunity. I never sat around and waited and pondered, but I was super transparent with jobs, and in return, they were super transparent with me. So that's what really allowed for me to, these quarterly reviews are really what then built out of me never taking no for an answer and just continuing to better myself. So I realized this was super quick and there was a lot jam-packed into it, but I hope it was very valuable. And honestly, as always, if you want any tips, tricks, or, just kind of different thoughts on anything I've talked about, do feel free to reach out. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I do look forward to talking with you again soon.